bunch of Canadian guys, and I wrestled with Christian. So they go, hey, like the next time they came down, we wrestle out there in Winnipeg, and I kind of heard that. They go, we'd like to bring you out there. They're looking for a guy. I actually thought what happened was I worked for a gentleman called Malcolm Monroe in Detroit. He'd run an independent show, and the great thing about him is if the house was bad, he'd still pay you what he promised you. Never tried to hem and haw or and he paid pretty good for guys starting out. And so, anyways, he booked Adam and Jay and Joe Legend and Zach Zach Wild, a wrestler. He called himself Zach Wild. And and I wrestled with Christian. So they go, hey, like the next time they came down, we wrestle out there in Winnipeg, and I kind of heard that. They go, we'd like to bring you out there. They're looking for a guy. Christian's mom would buy the plane ticket and the promoter would reimburse us. And it was like $150. So I give them the money at one of the shows. And you hear about guys like, taking your money and promising you this or that, or, and then falling through. So my cousin drove me up to, I think it was Guelph, right outside of Toronto, like when we were supposed to leave. And I get this address, and it's to where Edge was staying, Adam. And he was renting out a basement. So I go there, the directions, everything's fine. And this is like 96. And I knock at the door and nobody's there, and it's in the back of my mind. I'm like, they'll have to come back to Michigan, so anyways, and I'm like, man, no one's answering. So I go around to the front, because it was like the basement, walked out to the back because it was like on a hill, the house. So as I'm coming around, and here's Adam walking around. He had to drop his car off to the shop, and it was like a little bit of a country, so each house had about an acre. So he walked back, and I'm like, I'm playing it cool, like, nah, I didn't have any doubts, So I told him that because that tour out there, we really got to know each other, and really become friends, And I told him that, and he was shocked. He's like, "You thought I'd take your money?" I'm like, "Well, I didn't really know you guys, And because I wrestled with Christian down here in Detroit, and they needed someone up there, and they were like, "Hey, what about that Rhyno guy?" So, and then the story I just told you, but yeah, he was shocked that I thought he might have taken me for my money, but yeah, we'd go out there and we would record our matches, and then we'd study them, and then we'd think about what we could do to better ourselves. Yeah, and they would look up guys or seamstress to make our outfits and stuff. So it was all like a collaboration, of how to get better, and we weren't worried about going out to bars or anything like that, or it was just really focused. So.
Yeah. Well, those two guys, to me, when we got them, they were so young. They were two of the most astute guys that I'd run across up to that time. They just really studied they were students of our business, and I just wondered if they were like that in the very beginning days, and,
Yeah.
and you just verified it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So focused. Yeah.
And did you have any concern? I mean, you're just out of high school and you go up to Canada, and all of a sudden now you're trying to make this wrestling business. I mean, that's a pretty good leap of faith for you to go up there.
You know what? My biggest concern is because I never traveled besides going to a wedding in Toronto in 1994. My cousins, I'd only driven in a car an hour and a half, 2 hours at the most. So I mean, I was only in Ohio and Windsor, Ontario, other than, in northern Michigan, which, my aunt, we'd go up there, and that's like almost 2 hours away. And, as a kid, you're like, wow, an hour and 40 minutes, an hour and 45 minutes. Geez, that's like, sailing the ocean blue, like Christopher Columbus. I mean, we're in this car for hours. And now it's like a 2 hour
But
drive.
you didn't get lost like Christopher Columbus did, though.
Right, right, right. No, but now it's like, you're in the car for
That's
two,
one of
three,
Jerry's
4.
heroes is Christopher Columbus.
So, but
I
now
sent
you're in
him a
the
note
car.
every Columbus Day, and he always sends me back a lot of really nasty words, like
All
like really bad words.
He's the ultimate heel in my circle.
Yeah. So no, but no, now being in the car for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, it's nothing, so, but, the traveling, it didn't concern me. But, I didn't know what I didn't know I'd travel as much as, I do. So, or I've done.
Now the name Rhyno, is that something you came up with, or is that part of your name, or how did that name evolve in your wrestling career?
The person that came up to me and told me about the name was D'Lo on an independent
Wow.
show, and then I remember it was for Malcolm, and the lights were out, so they get a generator to put lights around the ring. The show must go on, and you couldn't see anything. And D'Lo had said something about, hey, you should think about using that name. The very next show I was on, it was at Al Snow's school, and he would run shows once a month out of there. And I used Terry Rhyno Richards for one show, and then I used Rhyno Richards up until ECW. So all throughout Germany and stuff, I'd use Rhyno Richards. So, but yeah, and then when I went to WWE, they said we can't trademark it. They came up with names, and Edge, he really pushed for it, and then he wrote down some other names that he thought was cool, like Juggernaut and a couple other ones, and I guess he wrote down some of the ones that were like really off the wall, like Mary. Like and they wanted me
Like
to dye
what?
my hair. What's
Mary.
that?
Mary?
Yeah, I don't know why. What behind
Why
it?
did why did he write down Mary?
Well, that was one of the worst ones. Yeah, like he said, he
I'll
wrote
say it
down the
was.
5 best ones and then the 5 worst ones, and Mary was on obviously the worst one. It might have been the number one worst ones he thought of. So then
How
five.
about Sue? Was Sue on there too?
No, no,
How about Jill?
maybe. So yeah, I go, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, I don't know
Yeah.
why. Yeah, I'm like, geez. So, but yeah. So, anyways, when I started with WWE, they said, hey, we got it cleared with a Y. So, but I'm like, okay, cool. But I'm glad it wasn't Mary.